Aetherian Tech Executive Boardroom A. Gu Xiao stands at the far right corner of the long conference table. A thermal mug rests in her grasp. She spent the last 2 hours gently simmering the herbal tonic inside. She puts the mug on the table's edge, bending her wrist. A plastic-bound document comes flying straight at her face. Its sharp plastic edge slices across her cheekbone, setting off an immediate, searing sting. She flinches, jerking her head to the side. The file lands on the floor by her feet, cover facing up. Stamped in bright red ink, the corporate seal of Aetherian Tech. A termination letter. Gu Xiao straightens up. Her gaze lifts slowly from the blocky printed letters and locks onto the man presiding at the head of the table. Qian is seated in the custom Italian leather CEO chair, dressed in a deep navy bespoke dress shirt. The metal cufflinks catch the projector's cold beam, glinting harshly. His face is twisted, raw with fury. His jaw tightens, lips pressed into a thin line. His nostrils flare slightly with each breath. His glare cuts through the air like a pair of daggers, nailed dead center onto Gu Xiao's face, radiating undisguised contempt and suffocating arrogance. 12 others fill the room. Department heads from Aetherian Tech, the marketing director, the technical lead, the VP of operations, HR director Lao Li, and a number of faces Gu Xiao couldn't attach names to. They all remain seated, frozen and silent. No one moves, barely breathing. The projector's beam cuts diagonally from the ceiling, casting a long rectangle of light across the middle of the table. It cuts sharply across the file on the floor. Qian's voice rasps from the head of the table, like sandpaper scraping metal. Pack up your trash. Get the hell out of my company. You are permanently blacklisted. Gu Xiao straightens her back. Her back presses against her old white blouse. The material is threadbare, bleached pallid. Her shoulder blades show through. She's frozen. She doesn't speak. She just looks at Qian. Her gaze is placid, like a pool of stagnant water. There's another person sitting right next to Qian. Chief of Staff, Su Fei. She is wearing a cream silk blouse, a delicate scarf tied at the collar. Her eyes are red-rimmed. A crumpled tissue is clutched tightly in her hand. Her body angles subtly towards Qian, like a frightened little bird. A paper contract is spread out on the table in front of her. A dark brown stain bloomed across the middle. The print was smeared beyond recognition. The curled, puckered edges carried the ghost of a coffee ring. Su Fei gave a soft, trembling little sniff. Her tone was perfectly calibrated. Mr. Qi, please, don't be so upset. I'm sure Ms. Shuyao didn't do this on purpose. The $300 billion Vanguard Capital letter's ruined. I'll beg for another meeting. At worst, I'll drink more at dinner. I can fix this. A vein pulsed violently in Qian's temple. He pounded the table, the solid mahogany booming dully under his fist. The teacups shivered, their surfaces rippling. And beg for what? His voice, sharp as a blade, roared, you pulled 3 all-nighters for this. From 2 meters away, he jabbed a finger, almost stabbing her. Gu Xiao. You think because you've been here forever, you can just crush the new talent? Over some petty jealousy? You were willing to torch the company's lifeline? Gu Xiao's gaze rose slowly from the termination letter on the floor, drifted past the ruined contract on the table, and finally locked onto Qian's face. She spoke. Quiet, almost unnervingly calm. Every word cut through the room. I never touched that contract. Qian let out a caustic scoff, his mouth twisting into a sneer, the muscle under his eye twitching. Yesterday afternoon, the logs, the confidential records room, only one person swiped in. I changed the dehumidifier. The humidity levels have been off the charts for 3 days. You signed the purchase order last week. My job, check it weekly. Qian's scowl deepened. A raw, impatient growl broke his restraint. You messed with the dehumidifier. And then Su Fei found an open coffee cup spilled all over the filing cabinet. Gu Xiao. Do you honestly think we're all idiots? Gu Xiao didn't dignify that with a response. She tilted her head, her gaze cutting past Qian's shoulder and settling squarely on Su Fei. Su Fei flinched immediately, swaying closer to Qian, head bowed. shoulders trembling, knuckles white around that wad of tissue. Check the security footage. Gu Xiao's statement was just 2 words. Qian tugged his tie sharply. The metallic clasp hit a button with a snap, as if he'd been waiting for just that. The records room security system was down for repairs yesterday afternoon. How perfectly convenient for you. You knew that. So you thought you could just get away with it. The metallic clasp clinked against his shirt button. A crisp snap. The surveillance in the records room went down yesterday afternoon. Under maintenance. You knew that, didn't you? That's why you dared to be so brazen. Gu Xiao didn't argue. She didn't explain. She simply looked at Qian. This man she had known for 4 years. Shared a bed with for 3. She could trace that scar on his back with her eyes closed. Deep diagonal slash, 11 stitches. The healed skin was a shade lighter than the rest. A faint raised ridge beneath her fingertips. Qian turned toward Laoli, huddled in the corner. Laoli, the HR director. A man in his mid-40s. Gold wire-rimmed glasses, thinning hair. Now standing rigid beside the printer. A fine sheen of sweat glistening on his forehead. Qian's voice carried unquestionable command. The procedure. Laoli immediately shuffled forward 2 paces, cradling a fountain pen and a termination agreement in both hands, like he was holding a piece of fragile porcelain. He laid the document gently on the table before Gu Xiao. Placing the pen beside it, the nib pointed directly at her. The cap was already removed. A small bead of black ink pooled at the tip. Mr. Qi. Laoli kept his voice low. Everything's prepared. As soon as Director Gu signs, it takes effect immediately. Qian snatched up the agreement and pen, slamming them down hard before Gu Xiao. To rattle the thermos at the corner. A splash of dark herbal tonic sloshed over the rim, leaving a wet trail across the dark mahogany desktop. Before the wood quickly absorbed it. Qian's voice ground out from between clenched teeth. Take your junk. Get out. Now. Gu Xiao lowered her gaze to the termination agreement on the table. Freshly printed. The white paper throwing off a cold glare under the overhead lights. Standard exit clauses printed neatly upon it. Every line rigidly in place. The final signature line, empty. Waiting for her to claim it. The boardroom fell deathly silent. Only the low, humming drone of the central AC vents filling the space. 12 pairs of eyes pinned on Gu Xiao. Some staring at the red mark blooming on her cheek. Others at her widening knuckles. A few stealing glances at the hard line of Qian's clenched jaw. Gu Xiao reached out and took the pen. The cool metal bit into her fingertips. She hovered the nib over the signature line, and paused. At the edge of the stain on the contract, Gu Xiao didn't look up. Her voice was low, but every syllable carried with razor clarity. There's a noticeable sticky residue. And crystallization. Qian's brow twitched. He didn't interrupt. His gaze was fixed on Gu Xiao's profile. It was a caramel macchiato, triple sugar, extra sweet. Gu Xiao's pen dropped half an inch. It still hadn't touched the paper. Everyone in this company knows I only drink black coffee. Qian's eyelid twitched, fast. Almost imperceptible. But the VP of operations, sitting diagonally across from him, noticed. He drew in a sharp, quiet breath. Gu Xiao signed her name. Her last stroke was sharp and decisive. She capped the pen. She set it down beside the agreement. Then she slid the document toward Qian. Only after she was done did she speak. Her tone was flat. She spoke like it didn't involve her. Has severe hyperthyroidism and a shellfish allergy. The private reception Su Fei booked at the Grand Hyatt last night. The main courses were Boston lobster and sea urchin sashimi. Su Fei's sobbing stopped dead. She looked up, face pale in the light. Her lips parted slightly, like she was about to say something, but she choked it back down. Her fingers were twisted together. Knuckles bone white from the strain. Qian's breath hitched. He stared at Gu Xiao's face, searching for a crack in that calm facade. But he found nothing. Gu Xiao's gaze was the same as ever. That unshakable stillness, Qian had always found it repulsive. But now, it felt like silent mockery. Qi Yan's thumb pressed into the tabletop. His nail left a white indent on the surface. He took a ragged breath. His voice rose an octave. You obsess over takeout orders. That's not a skill. Stop this charade. You signed it. Now get the hell out. Gu Shuyao didn't spare him another glance. She turned. Her elbow hit the thermos. A loud crack echoed. The thermos tumbled off the edge, smashing against the marble floor. The glass liner inside shattered on impact. Dark herbal tonic bled out from the cracks, splattering everywhere. It soaked the canvas of Gu Shuyao's faded, washed-out sneakers, and splashed onto Qi Yan's leather shoes. His Italian hand-stitched leather shoes. The toe cap was now dotted with dark brown spots. The bitter, pungent herbal smell instantly filled the conference room, smothering the expensive commercial perfume clinging to Su Fei. Gu Shuyao looked down at the mess by her feet. She'd used that thermos for 3 years. The stainless steel casing was chipped and scratched beyond counting. The bare metal showed through, just like this termination letter. She'd been up since 4 a.m. brewing that herbal tonic. A prescription she'd gotten from the provincial hospital, specifically for Qi Yan's chronic gastric ulcer. 12 herbs. 2 hours on a low, slow simmer. Strained. Cooled. Poured. She didn't bend down to pick up the pieces. She pushed open the glass door and walked out. The cubicle farm was freakishly silent. Hundreds of employees sat at their stations. They typed loudly, but no one looked up. Yet she could feel their peripheral vision crawling all over her. They watched her walk to the far corner desk. The smallest, shittiest desk on the entire floor. It was by the break room, under a dead light. Gu Shuyao pulled a cardboard box out from under it. Clean. The corner stiff. It used to hold printer paper. She started packing. 2 black pens. A notebook she'd used for 3 years. Craft paper cover. It was frayed. She opened it for one last look. Packed with Qi Yan's schedules. All in her handwriting. The exact times his ulcer flared up. Precise hangover remedy dosages for after every business dinner. Reminders to hit the Chinese medicine pharmacy twice a week. On the last page, one final line, Friday 3 p.m. Remind Qi Yan about his gastroscopy follow-up. Gu Shuyao shut the notebook, and with a flick of her wrist, dropped it straight into the trash can by her foot. A dull thud as the paper hit the plastic. A syrupy voice piped up right next to her. Shuyao. Gu Shuyao turned her head. Su Fei was gliding over in those red-bottom heels. Freshly brewed coffee in hand. A thin layer of milk foam clinging to the rim of the porcelain cup. Her eyes still looked a little red. But she couldn't quite hide the glee simmering underneath. She smirked, like she had front-row seats at last. Don't blame CEO Qi. Su Fei dropped her voice, leaning in close. Low enough so only the two of them could hear. He's been under so much pressure. The company is about to go public. A million things to juggle. And, you're really not in a position to help him with any of it now. Take the severance and leave quietly. It's best for everyone. Gu Shuyao was placing a photo frame into the box. Inside was a picture. Taken in a basement when the company started. She and Qi Yan, sitting on 2 folding chairs. Before them sat instant noodles, with 2 pairs of chopsticks. Qi Yan was thinner back then. There was a light in his eyes. His mouth curved into a genuine smile when he saw her. Not the polished, professional look he perfected later. Gu Shuyao's finger froze on the frame's edge for a second. She flicked her wrist. The frame dropped into the trash. Right on top of that notebook. The glass panel shattered into a spiderweb of cracks. The cracks spread from the center of the photo, slicing Qi Yan's smile into 1,000 broken fragments. She turned around and faced Su Fei. 2 words, cold as ice. Move. Su Fei froze. She'd expected Gu Shuyao to cry after being fired, to scream, to throw a tantrum, to look utterly blindsided. But Gu Shuyao's eyes looked right through her, like she was air. No emotional ripple. Not even disgust. Su Fei gritted her teeth. pointing at a gray lumbar pillow inside the box. Sister Shuyao. This is company property, standard office procurement. Per policy, you can't take it with you upon termination. Gu Xiao glanced down at the pillow. Gray velvet. The filling was getting flat. A small, dark stain marked one corner. She'd bought it for Qian when he had neck pain last year. Later, he said the color was too bland. He tossed it back, saying it didn't match his chair. Gu Xiao picked it up by the edge and tossed it casually at Sufei's feet. A puff of dust rose when it hit the floor. Sufei, provoked by her attitude, was about to snap. But she spotted HR Director Laoli heading their way. Instantly, she looked wounded and stepped back half a pace. Her eyes welled up on cue. Gu Xiao ignored the performance. She picked up her box, walked around Sufei, and headed straight for the elevator. Laoli called out from behind her. Director Gu. Your termination letter is processed. All your system access has been revoked. Got it. Gu Xiao didn't look back. The moment the elevator doors slid shut, through that narrowing gap, she saw Qian stepping out of the conference room. Sufei immediately went to him, latching onto his arm. Qian leaned down and whispered something to Sufei. His lips moved, but he didn't even glance at the elevator. The doors closed completely. Numbers started ticking over on the digital panel. It stirred that familiar, sick feeling in Gu Xiao's stomach again. As she walked out of Etherian Tech's revolving doors, it was pouring rain outside. Heavy raindrops hammered against the glass curtain wall, creating a dense white noise, like countless pebbles hitting a drumhead at the same time. She had no umbrella. She walked into the rain, box in her arms. The rain instantly soaked through her white blouse. The fabric clung to her skin. The icy touch cooled her burning forehead a little. She walked in the rain, needing the cold. Her rented apartment was only 2 blocks from the company. It was a tiny, dilapidated 400-square-foot unit. The stairwell light's been broken for 3 months. She always climbed 3 flights in the dark. She pushed open the rusty security door. The room smelled musty, starved of sunlight, mixed with the dust of old furniture. Gu Xiao set the soaked cardboard box on the floor in the entryway. She didn't turn on the light. She walked to the kitchen. She pulled open the refrigerator door. Cold light hit the shelves crammed with containers. A sticky note was attached to every single one. She leaned in to look. It was her handwriting. Monday morning, millet porridge. Wednesday, stomach tonic. Friday, sugar-free meal. The handwriting was neat and precise, every stroke deliberate. She stood in front of the fridge, staring for a long time. Freezer cold hit her bare arms, raising a dense layer of goosebumps. Her knees suddenly went weak. She slid down the refrigerator door, collapsing to the floor. Her back pressed against the freezing metal panel. The icy sensation cut right through her wet shirt, shocking her spine. She wrapped her arms around her knees, buried her face, shoulders shaking violently. She bit down hard on her lip, refusing to make a sound. But every breath in her chest was a suppressed, ragged heave. Her nails dug deep into the muscle of her arm, leaving several deep, crescent-shaped red marks on her fair skin. 3 years. 1,095 days and nights. She'd given up an executive seat at deep-sea venture capital, abandoned the social circle that belonged to her, to do the most menial grunt work in a low-level administrative role. She thought she was repaying a debt of gratitude. She thought Qian would remember that alley block. Would remember that promise. From now on, I've got your back. What she got was a termination letter thrown in her face. A single, warm drop of liquid splashed onto her knee, blooming into a dark circle on the damp fabric. Gu Xiao's shoulders flinched. A strangled sound escaped her throat. A suppressed, ultimate whimper. Just then, the phone on the coffee table lit up. Its monotonous vibration sliced through the dead silence of the room. The buzzing sound was like someone tapping impatiently on the desk. Gu Xiao's body went rigid. The trembling stopped instantly. She lifted her head. No tear tracks. Only a faint bloodshot rimmed her eyes. She pulled herself up using the fridge door, her legs numb. Her knee cracked. She walked to the table and picked up the phone. An email notification. Sender, Ethereum Tech HR. Subject, separation procedure finalization. She opened it. A few lines of text. Ms. Gu Shuyao. Your departure procedures were fully completed as of 2:30 p.m. today. Social Security and Housing Fund accounts have been disconnected. Thank you for your service to Ethereum. Gu Xiao stared at the word disconnected for 3 seconds. She drew in a deep breath and slowly exhaled the stale, toxic air from her lungs. The overwhelming nausea receded like a tide. Her hands were steady now. She set the phone down. She walked over to a low table in the corner of the living room, lifting the lid of a black, encrypted laptop. Fingerprint recognized. An all-English, dark blue interface filled the screen. The highest admin backend of the Deep Sea Venture Trust Fund. Gu Xiao's fingers danced across the keyboard, pulling up an investment file coded HY387. A complex 3-year trust agreement. Its capital chain snaked through 3 Cayman relay stations, funneling into Ethereum Tech's Big 4 bank accounts. At the very bottom of the file, an addendum clause in minuscule font. The text was a shade lighter than the main body, but every letter was perfectly legible. Gu Xiao dragged the termination email into the evidence portal. The cursor hovered over the red confirm button. Her index finger pressed down. A green progress bar bloomed in the center of the screen. The status bar refreshed. A line of text flashed, beneficiary removed from protective clause. Divestment protocol activated. Countdown commencing, 11 hours, 59 minutes, 59 seconds. Gu Xiao shut the laptop. Rain pummeled the windows. The deep blue progress bar crawled forward noticeably. The number jumped from 1 to 5. The black phone on the desk vibrated. A virtual number from Geneva, Switzerland, lit up the screen. After the country code came a string of digits she knew by heart. She pressed answer and lifted the phone to her ear. My lady. A deep, rigid male voice came through the line. It was Arthur, chief asset manager of Deep Sea Venture Capital. His Mandarin had a faint British accent. Every syllable was measured with surgical precision. System just received trigger command for trust agreement HY387. The authorizer's employment contract has been terminated. Gu Xiao didn't interrupt him. She leaned back, eyes catching a ceiling crack. Pursuant to the supplementary clause in Article 12, the moment you leave Ethereum Tech, Deep Sea VC will automatically withdraw all capital. Ethereum Tech currently holds liquid capital and security deposits, totaling 38.76 billion renminbi. Arthur's voice remained flat, like a synthesized recording. The volume of these funds is substantial. Complete extraction routes through 3 offshore stations. Estimated time, 9 hours. Understood, my lady? Once the process passes the 20% irreversibility threshold, Ethereum Tech's capital chain will completely snap. All its accounts will trigger banking risk control alarms, leading to a full freeze. Arthur paused for a beat, like a precise machine waiting for the operator's command. Are you sure you don't need a 12-hour buffer period? Not needed. Proceeding via highest priority channel directly. Understood. All funds will be cleared out before 8 a.m. tomorrow. The sound of Arthur's keyboard clacking was faint, as if muffled by a layer of cloth. I wish you a good night. The call ended. The progress bar on the screen hit 21%. The system interface shifted from deep blue to a harsh, warning red. The display flashed, irrevocable withdrawal initiated. Gu Xiao shut the laptop and stood up. She walked into the bedroom. The wardrobe sliding door glided open. On the left hung Qian's bespoke suits, each draped in a dust cover, pressed to perfection. On the right were her own discounted dresses from online shops. Cotton, polyester, a few pieces stacked in a lump. The edges were frayed from washing. She didn't touch them. Bending down, she dragged a 20-inch black suitcase from under the bed. The zipper opened with a single pull. She placed 3 things into the hard shell: the encrypted laptop, a stock certificate for deep-sea venture capital, and a 3-year-old marriage certificate. Passing the vanity, she stopped. A velvet box sat on the counter. A plain silver band rested on the dark red lining. Qi Yan bought it at a street stall for 100 yuan when he started up. The silver surface was already tarnished, dull and dark. There was a tiny scratch on the inside of the band. She used to treat it like a treasure, wearing it every single day. Until 6 months ago, he found it too shabby for business meals. He forced her to take it off. Gu Shuyao picked up the box. Her fingertips gently brushed the velvet surface. Then, with a flick of her wrist, it dropped into the wastebasket, mixing with the used makeup wipes. A smear of pale foundation residue stained the velvet. She dragged the suitcase to the door. She didn't look back at the room she'd lived in for 3 years. The security door shut behind her with a heavy, muffled thud. The motion sensor light flickered on in the hallway, then died out. midnight. Grand Hyatt Penthouse VIP Suite. The soundproof door locked out every footstep from the corridor. The lights inside were dim. Brown leather sofas curved into a semicircle. Open red wine bottles and 2 dusty whiskey glasses cluttered the coffee table. The air was thick with the scent of Cuban cigars and Romani Conti. A cloying, fruity sweetness crushed under the bitter char of tobacco. Qi Yan lounged in the center of the sofa, his tie long since yanked loose, swaying against his collar. The top 2 buttons of his shirt were undone, revealing a patch of flushed skin below his collarbone, a heated reaction to the alcohol. Sufei was half draped over his shoulder, a glass of red wine in her hand. A faint ring of lipstick stained the rim. As she smiled and lifted it towards Qi Yan's lips, her arm circled his neck, her pinky finger subtly grazing his earlobe. CEO Qi. Congratulations. The VP of Operations at Ethereum Tech approached, wine glass in hand, his face creased with a fawning smile. His teeth looked unnaturally white in the dim light. We finally cut out that cancer today. As long as Gu Xiao was in the administration department, we senior execs had to work under her icy glare. Anyone would have thought she owned the place. Qi Yan took a sip of wine, his Adam's apple bobbing. A cold snort escaped his nose. She just didn't know her place. He placed his glass on the coffee table, the base clinking crisply against the marble surface. Did she really think that because she suffered with me years ago, she could call the shots and boss me around? This company's 100 billion valuation today is built on the core architecture code I wrote. A woman who can't even read a financial statement. What does she know about capital operations? Sufei immediately straightened up. Her slender fingers traced small circles on Qi Yan's chest. Her nails painted a pale pink, skimming through the gaps in his shirt buttons. Mr. Yan, everyone knows how brilliant you are. Mr. Wang from Vanguard Capital even messaged me this afternoon. He said once we sign that 3 billion letter of intent tomorrow, we can have our pick of resources going forward. She blinked, her thick lashes casting 2 tiny shadows under the sidelight. That Shuyao, she's really too much. Almost ruined such a huge deal. Good thing you were decisive. At the mention of this, Qi Yan's eyes darkened. He remembered her look as she left the boardroom. No tears, no hysterics. Not even a single, superfluous word. That calmness made his chest tighten with a dull ache. Like throwing a full-force punch, only to have it land on cotton. Didn't even make a sound. Qi Yan looked at CFO Lao Zhao in the corner. His hair was graying, and he wore a pair of half-frame glasses. Behind the lenses, his eyes were narrow. He was swiping the screen, brows furrowed. Qi Yan raised his voice and called out to Lao Zhao. The liquidity in our accounts is solid, right? Tomorrow, we acquire Southeast Asian markets. I'll need an initial capital allocation of 5 billion. Lao Zhao looked up and pushed his glasses up his nose. The lenses glinted. Don't worry, Mr. Qi. We have nearly 40 billion in cash. Couldn't be healthier. He let out a laugh. His voice was a little hoarse. Still clueless how this bypassed regulations. It was a stroke of genius. With this money as our base capital, Forget acquiring the Southeast Asian market. You could ring Nasdaq's bell tomorrow. A smug smile played at the corner of Qi Yan's mouth. This money had always been his proudest trump card. 3 years ago, when the company was on the brink of bankruptcy, an offshore fund, HY, reached out. First, 50 million. They kept adding. They never interfered with the company's operations. Qi Yan thought it was his darknet code. Validation of his genius. Funding solid. Qi Yan waved a hand grandly. First thing tomorrow morning, wire the deposit for the acquisition. Approve a 5 million bonus for Su Fei. For today's trouble. Thanks, Brother Yan. Su Fei planted a kiss on his cheek in a burst of excitement. It made a soft little smacking sound as her lips met his skin. Lao Zhao nodded with a smile. Consider it done, Mr. Qi. I'll handle it at 8 sharp tomorrow morning. The mood in the private booth turned lively once again. The VP of operations poured 2 more glasses of wine. The marketing director came over for a round of toasts. No one noticed the tablet on the table. The screen, in sleep mode, suddenly flickered to life. An extremely discreet back-end system notification flashed past. It was there for only half a second, then overwritten by a system log. 3 a.m. Inside a Wall Street skyscraper wrapped in black glass curtain walls. The data center of deep-sea venture capital was blazing with lights. Dozens of giant servers stood side by side. Their cooling fans emitted a constant, low-humming drone. Green data cascaded down the screens. Each record represented the movement trail of a sum of money. Cayman accounts fully liquidated. Confirmed. A trader with a London accent spoke into his microphone. Figures flickered madly before him on the screen. They began stripping Ethereum Tech's pledged shares from HSBC. Another operator hit enter. A confirmation prompt flashed onto the screen. He clicked the green confirm button. Halfway across the Pacific, in a Chinese city, inside Ethereum Tech's server room. Server light switched from steady green to flashing amber. This server linked all Ethereum Tech's corporate accounts. Deep within its circuits, a piece of code, planted 3 years ago, was now fully awakened. The code had been designed to stay in a state of absolute dormancy. No one knew of its existence. Not even the head of tech who oversaw server maintenance. But now, it moved like an invisible scalpel, severing every lock on those 38.7 billion funds. No lag from manual approval processes. No tripwires from bankside risk control. A lawful extraction under highest international trust law. The HSBC balance flashed to 12 billion, then 0. The UBS account balance flashed to 15.5 billion. Then 0. China Merchants Bank balance flashed to 11.2 billion. Then 0. Figures evaporated at hundreds of millions per second. Crimson digits leaped like a string of lit fuses. At that exact moment, Qi Yan sprawled across the Grand Hyatt's king-sized bed. Sinking deep into plush down covers. The pillow still carried last night's cedar cologne scent. His breathing was steady, the corners of his mouth slightly upturned, as if lost in a pleasant dream. Su Fei had one leg draped over his waist. Her toenails, painted the same pale pink gloss, gleamed softly under the moonlight through sheer curtains. Qi Yan heard a bell ringing in his dream. A brass mallet struck the gong, resonating long through the air. He was standing on the podium at the NYSE bell-ringing ceremony. Flashes popped relentlessly in a blinding barrage. Below the stage, a sea of suits were all applauding. He'd become the youngest ever to captain a billion-dollar empire. Magazine covers, forum invitations. Award ceremonies lined up, waiting for him to choose. And Gu Xia was kneeling below the stage, wearing a white blouse washed so thin it was almost threadbare. Face still red, she cried, begging him to let her return. Saying she'd even work as a janitor. He laughed out loud in the dream. His tongue clicked, making a gloating, garbled sound. 5:30 a.m. The rain had stopped. The city streets had been scrubbed clean by the overnight downpour. The asphalt shimmered with a damp, cold gleam. Streetlight halos shattered into gold shards and puddles. The air carried a mix of damp earth and exhaust fumes. Faint, and quickly dispersed by the wind. Gu Xiao wore a high-collared black trench coat. Pulling a small suitcase, she left the old compound. The suitcase wheels rolled over the wet concrete, making a continuous, low, rumbling sound. Outside, a phantom black Rolls-Royce waited in silence. Its license plate was 5 identical digits. Under the streetlights, its side panel reflected a soft, fluid luster. Raindrops clung to the roof, sliding down its curve. An elderly foreign man in a tailcoat, his hands in white gloves, stood by the car door. His back was ramrod straight, hands clasped loosely in front of him. Seeing Gu Xiao emerge from the alleyway, he stepped forward and bowed deeply. "Young Mississippi. Welcome home." Gu Xiao let go of the suitcase handle. The butler smoothly took over, placing the old case into the trunk with a feather-light touch. As if protecting treasure, she approached the car door. She didn't rush to get in. From her pocket, she pulled out her 3-year-old phone. Several unread notifications flickered on the screen. The one on top was a text from Qian, sent at 2 a.m. Short and to the point. A condescending tone, "Your severance has been deposited. It's what you deserve. Don't come causing trouble. Stop swindling others as Qian's ex-wife. Let's just part ways cleanly." Gu Xiao stared at those few lines on the screen. Her fingers didn't hesitate for a single second. She pried open the back cover. The plastic clip snapped open. With a tiny click, she pulled out the SIM card. She pinched the card's corners between her thumb and index finger. The metal chip faced up. Under the cold light, she snapped it in half. The card split cleanly down the middle. Exposed wires jutted from the jagged edges, like severed blood vessels. She tossed the broken pieces through the iron grate of a storm drain. The gap was narrow. The card scraped against the rusty metal bars as it fell. A nearly inaudible hiss echoed up. "Let's go." Gu Xiao slid into the back seat of the Rolls-Royce. The heavy door sealed her in silence. A subtle vibration from the engine rippled through the leather seat, like a massive beast purring low in its chest. "Madam, straight to Deep Blue Ventures China HQ?" The butler turned, his voice measured and deferential. "The board elders are already waiting. The divestment from Ethereum Tech was finalized 10 minutes ago." To HQ. Gu Xiao leaned back into the hand-stitched leather. She closed her eyes. "And notify legal. Draft the divorce papers. At fault, on his side. I want him out with nothing. Understood." The black Rolls-Royce glided onto the main road. Tires hissed softly through a sheen of standing water. The headlights cut stark white beams through the early morning mist. The car drove in the exact opposite direction of Ethereum Tech. 3 blocks later, it merged onto the beltway, accelerating. Street lamps outside blurred into a phantom streak of light. 7:45 a.m. Ethereum Tech headquarters, financial center. Lao Zhao strolled in, humming a pop song, Americano in hand. He'd partied a little too hard at the Grand Hyatt last night. His head was still buzzing. A dull, pounding ache throbbed at his temples. But he remembered the task CEO Chi had drilled into him. Wire $5 billion for the SEA acquisition before 8 a.m. The office floor was deserted. Only a few printers hummed feebly in standby mode. The water cooler in the corner glowed with a red heating light. Lao Zhao walked into his private office. He set the coffee down. Pulled out his 3-year-old ergonomic chair. A soft creak escaped the backrest as he settled in. He hit the power button on his tower, the screen flickered to life. He entered 3 rotating security codes. He plugged the bank security token into the USB port. The indicator light on the U-shield blinked twice, then turned solid. "First, transfer out $5 billion. then send Sufei a 5 million bonus. Lao Zhao muttered to himself. The mouse clicking opened the corporate online banking homepage. The page loaded for 2 seconds. Then a familiar deep blue interface popped up. The account name and balance were displayed in the upper right corner. Lao Zhao lifted his coffee mug, bringing it to his lips. When he saw the massive number center screen, the mug froze midair. He blinked. Thinking he was still hungover, he set the mug down. Pressing his fingers to his eyes, he leaned in. He nearly pressed against the screen. Balance, $200. Lao Zhao's breath hitched violently. He slammed the refresh key. The page reloaded. The number in the corner flickered, then settled. Unchanged. Still $200. Is the system glitching? Lao Zhao's voice wavered. He frantically clicked the transaction history on the left. The screen flooded with rows of red outbound transfers. Every transaction timestamped between 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. Every single amount was a gut punch. 5 billion. 8 billion. 12 billion. Every memo had the same code, Article 387. Authorized removal of protectorate. Enforcement action. Lao Zhao's hand began to tremble. The mouse clattered against the desk. He frantically toggled through 7 other linked company accounts. China Construction Bank, ICBC, Minqing Bank. Each one flashed the same number, $200. Completely drained. Nothing left but the mandatory minimum corporate account balance. $38.7 billion vanished overnight. Didn't leave a single cent of interest behind. Lao Zhao's knuckles started turning white. He clicked open the underlying documents of the HY 387 trust agreement. A file he normally had zero authorization to view. He didn't even know what the specific contents of that code were. He only knew a fixed sum came in monthly. But with the total capital pullout, the trust's underlying code auto-unlocked. A 3-year master deal auto-sent this morning. A completely English PDF document popped up on the screen. Lao Zhao scrolled the document to the signature area on the last page. There was no name of some international financial consortium there. No complicated offshore company stamps. 3 elegant characters, signed by the highest authority. Sole authorized beneficiary. Gu Shuyao. Lao Zhao's pupils dilated instantly. Bloodshot eyes. He slammed back into his chair. The chair wheels skidded half a meter across the floor, ramming into the filing cabinet behind him with a heavy thud. He pushed to stand, knee hitting the table leg. The sharp pain made him suck in a cold breath. Gu Shuyao. Chief of Staff Gu Shuyao, her severance deal destroyed by Qian yesterday. Who was told to get the hell out of the company. For 3 years, she poured tea for Qian daily. Ordered takeout, brewed hangover cures. That washed up. Plain Jane nobody Gu Shuyao everyone looked down on. Lao Zhao finally understood. His stroke of genius last night is utterly laughable. This was Gu Shuyao's play from the start. She dumped $38.7 billion to watch Qian play house. And now, her game's over. Lao Zhao scrambled out of his chair, practically falling over himself. He snatched his phone off the desk, his hands trembling so hard he couldn't unlock the screen. He dialed Qian's number. The line trilled. Endless, droning rings. Each one pounded in his chest like a death knell. Lao Zhao stared at that mocking 200.00 balance on the screen. Cold sweat soaked through his shirt. 8:10 a.m. In the Grand Hyatt suite, Qian kept his eyes shut. He fumbled blindly on the nightstand for his phone. He'd drunk way too much. His skull was splitting. A sledgehammer pounding a relentless rhythm against his temples. A high-pitched, agonizing buzz filled his brain. His fingers grazed cold metal. He hit the answer button, dragging the phone to his ear. Who's dying this early? Spit it out. Qian's voice was thick with groggy irritation. A hoarse rasp like sandpaper. Mr. Qi, we've got a situation. Lao Zhao's voice on the other end was shrill, distorted. Like his throat was caught in a vice. You need to see this right now. The corporate online banking, it's all gone. The accounts, empty. Qi Yan frowned, holding the phone a few inches away from his ear. The call timer ticked on. What do you mean, empty? Qi Yan massaged his temple. He pressed his fingertips into his brow bone, digging in. Lao Zhao, are you still drunk? That 5 billion guarantee for the Southeast Asia acquisition. Didn't I tell you to wire it first thing this morning? I can't, Mr. Qi. Not a single cent can be moved. Lao Zhao's voice over the line was practically a sob. His ragged gasps echoing through. And it's not just the 5 billion. All 38.7 billion in working capital, drained. Every single corporate account with the big four banks, zeroed out. Qi Yan froze. His eyes snapped open. He stared up at the ornate crystal chandelier on the ceiling. The glass caught the light, splintering into dizzy colors. It made his head spin. Lao Zhao. Qi Yan's voice went cold as ice. This is a lousy joke. System upgrades and maintenance are routine. International wire transfers for large sums sometimes show a data lag. You're the CFO. You should know this already. It's not a lag. It's a withdrawal. The offshore trust HY 387's forced divestiture clause kicked in. Lao Zhao's panic scream tore through the phone speaker. Mr. Qi, you have to get to the office. The sky is falling. The line went dead. Qi Yan stared at the dark phone screen. He scoffed, a short, sharp exhale through his nose. This is insane. That offshore trust has sat untouched for 3 years. Never a single glitch. Year-end interest was always settled to the cent. A silent nod from invisible international whales. How can it just vanish? Even if we're playing devil's advocate, and someone wanted to pull the funds, a shift that big needs 2 weeks for bank clearance. Draining it overnight? It's a goddamn fairy tale. Yen, darling? Who's making all that noise so early? A pale, slender arm reached out from under the duvet. Sufei sat up, rubbing her eyes. One silk strap slipped down, revealing a smooth, bare shoulder. Qi Yan turned to look at Sufei's flawless face. And the irritation in his chest settled, just a little. Lao Zhao. He probably just slept off a bender. He flipped out seeing the office maintenance screen. He tossed the phone back onto the nightstand. Ignore him. Sufei instantly perked up. She leaned into Qi Yan, letting her finger trace slowly down his chest. Her nail scraped his shirt with a faint tease. Yen, darling. About that Porsche Panamera you promised me yesterday. Sufei fluttered her lashes. Thick and lush like little fans. The sales rep sent me the specs last night. There's one ready to go. Ice metallic pink. I'm completely in love. Qi Yan pinched her chin. Done. Buy it. Once we sign the Southeast Asia contract today, I'll have Lao Zhao approve the funds this afternoon. He threw off the covers and headed barefoot to wash up. Wear something sharp. You're coming to the office with me today. I want those arrogant execs to see. Exactly the woman to stand beside Ethereum's CEO. Sufei squealed with delight. Racing barefoot to the bathroom. Water splashed instantly, mingling with the tune she was humming. Qi Yan stood before the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the morning rush hour gridlock below. Dawn light spilled over the eastern skyline, painting the entire sky a faint, layered orange-pink. Headlights formed 2 rivers, red northbound, white flowing south. He adjusted the collar of his robe, the corner of his mouth curling into a smug, satisfied smirk. That head Gu Shuyao is in some roach-infested rental now. Crying her eyes out over her pathetic little severance check. Without her dead weight dragging him down, he was utterly unstoppable. And this very morning, he was about to launch his global empire. 40 minutes later, a black Maybach stopped at Ethereum Tech Tower. The chauffeur opened the door. Qi Yan stepped out, Sufei's hand in his. Sufei was wearing the latest runway haute couture suit. The cream wool blend fabric had sharp, clean lines. In her hand, a limited edition Hermes Birkin. Its palladium clasp caught the morning light for a split second. She was the picture of opulence. The moment her Louboutins hit the pavement, The sharp clack of her heel echoed off the marble floor. Qian pushed through the revolving glass doors into the lobby. The atmosphere inside was unsettling. 3 assistants huddled at reception, staring at a phone. Faces pale, bodies pressed close, as if discussing something catastrophic. The second they saw Qian, they scattered like startled birds. Their eyes were wide with panic and avoidance. No one shouted the usual morning, Mr. Qi. Qian's brow furrowed, a deep scowl forming. Is this what you call business hours? Is this how administration maintains the company's front line? He swept a cold glare over them. His voice sharpened. Send yesterday's attendance records to my office. Your entire department's monthly bonus, forfeited. The 3 girls bit their lips hard, not daring to defend themselves. Staring at the floor, gripping their phones tightly. Their knuckles turned white. Qian dismissed the low-level staff from his mind entirely. He led Su Fei into the executive elevator. The doors sealed shut. The floor indicator jumped in rapid succession, sailing straight to the 36th floor. A soft ding echoed. The doors glided open. Qian took 1 step out, and was nearly bowled over by someone charging at him. It was Lao Zhao, the usually impeccably tailored, meticulous CFO. His tie now hung askew around his neck. His shirt was misbuttoned by 2 holes, and a flap of fabric trailed out from under his belt. Sweat beaded on his forehead, his hair plastered to his temples. He looked like a drowned man. He was clutching a laptop to his chest, holding it like a white-hot iron, the veins in his arms bulging. Mr. Qi. You're finally here. Lao Zhao seized Qian's arm, his fingers digging into the fabric of Qian's suit, his nails leaving deep creases in the material. Qian shoved him off with force and brushed his sleeve. You're making a scene over a few creases on my sleeve. Where is your decorum? He barked. I made myself perfectly clear on the phone. Ignore the delayed system maintenance error. Call the bank relationship manager now. It's not maintenance. It's not an error. A guttural, piercing howl suddenly erupted from Lao Zhao. The sound echoed violently through the corridor. His eyes were completely bloodshot, and his entire being seemed on the verge of a mental breakdown. A trace of white foam had even gathered at the corners of his mouth. Lao Zhao shoved open the double mahogany doors to the CEO's office. He used so much force that the doors slammed against the walls with a deafening bang. He hurled his laptop onto Qian's mahogany desk with brutal force. It landed screen up, its edge hitting the desk with a sharp crack. See for yourself. Lao Zhao jabbed a finger at the screen, his hand trembling as if being electrocuted. Lao Zhao's erratic behavior unnerved Qian for a split second. Suppressing his fury, he strode behind his desk, pulled out his Italian leather chair and sat down, his weight hitting the leather cushion produced a dull, muffled friction sound. Su Fei clicked in on her high heels, placed her Hermes bag gently on the sofa, walked up behind Qian, rested her hands on his shoulders, chin on her own hands. Lao Zhao, what the hell did you take this early in the morning? Su Fei teased in her signature coquettish voice. Qian was silent. His gaze was fixed on the laptop screen. It was Atherian Tech's corporate banking at China Merchants Bank. A stark white spreadsheet on a deep blue background. The top line of the spreadsheet was glaringly obvious. Available balance, 200 yuan even. A violent spasm flickered across Qian's eyelid. It was so fast, he didn't even register it himself. He grabbed the mouse and clicked refresh in the corner. The page loaded twice. Available balance, 200 yuan even. Qian's breathing hitched for half a second. He forced himself to calm down. CMB's portal is always glitchy. His voice was still steady, each word meticulously enunciated. He typed a few keystrokes proficiently and switched to the offshore account with HSBC. That was their main account for holding margin deposits, which normally never held less than 100 billion. It loaded. Available balance, 200 yuan even. Qian's fingers froze over the keyboard, his knuckles involuntarily turning a ghastly white. He frantically toggled between CCB, ICBC, and UBS. Every single account returned the same result. 200.00, every corporate account under the company's name. Looked like it had been gutted by a surgical tornado, leaving behind only the statutory minimum balances. Qian's Adam's apple bobbed painfully. Cold sweat burst out across his back instantly. That 50,000 yuan bespoke shirt was now glued to his spine. The soaked fabric had turned a deeper shade. An icy, sticky chill seeping through where it met his skin. The transaction records. Qian's voice finally cracked, losing all its composure, turning hoarse and frantic. Pull up the transaction details. Lao Zhao extended a trembling hand, scrolling on the touchpad and clicking into the detailed list. A long, damning column of red debits flooded the screen. Every line was a searing, violent red, like streaks of dried blood. 2:14 and 33 seconds AM. Transfer out, 5.1 billion. Remarks, HY 387 Trust Agreement withdrawal. Grantor protection removal, force execute. 3:22 and 15 seconds AM. Transfer out, 12.1 billion. Remarks, HY 387 Trust Agreement withdrawal. Grantor protection removal, force execute. 4:45 and 10 seconds AM. Transfer out, 8.1 billion. Remarks, HY 387 Trust Agreement withdrawal. Grantor protection removal, force execute. Transfers went to a Cayman offshore way station. The routing was complex. Clearance was off the charts. Untraceable. Unstoppable. Qian stared, paralyzed, at the recurring remark line on the screen. His whole body was frozen in place. Only his eyeballs moving slowly in their sockets. Hi 387. Qian murmured to himself. Of course he knew that code. The ID for the overseas VC propping him up for 3 years. Every funding roadshow, every media exclusive. Every time an investor conducted due diligence on his company, he trotted out the story behind that code and boasted about it. This is impossible. Qian shot to his feet. The genuine leather executive chair rocketed backward from the force, its back slamming against the floor-to-ceiling window behind him. A sickening, muffled thud. The glass shook. On what grounds can they divest? The deal says if Ethereum meets profit goals, the funds remain active in perpetuity. Our profit margins tripled this year. They breached the contract. I'm suing them. Qian's hands were flat on the desk. The veins on his forearms bulged. His fingers dug into the solid wood, knuckles turning white. Lao Zhao didn't flinch. He stared at Qian. A deep pity mixed with a hint of veiled mockery flickered in his eyes. Did you ever read the underlying master agreement for HY 387? I'm the corporate legal representative. They wired the money directly. We only signed a framework agreement. There was no master agreement. Oh, but there is. With the full capital withdrawal, the trust's encrypted data unlocked. The 3-year master agreement hit me today. A PDF document, entirely in English, popped up on the screen. Lao Zhao scrolled down to the signature block on the final page. Mr. Qi, you thought your code drew global funds. Take a look for yourself. Who, exactly, is the sole authorized beneficiary of this trust fund? Qian looked down. His eyes locked onto the section under Lao Zhao's cursor. There was no name of some international conglomerate. No stamp from a complex offshore shell company. Just 3 elegant, familiar characters. Sole authorized beneficiary, Gu Shuyao. A deafening roar exploded inside Qian's skull. Like a sledgehammer slamming into the top of his head. He stared at those characters, about to burst. Bloodshot veins instantly spiderwebbed across the whites of his eyes. Gu Shuyao. Qian's voice drifted out, hollow like a dream. Laced with a profound sense of absurdity. Impossible. It's just a namesake. It has to be a namesake. Have you lost your mind, Lao Zhao? Gu Shuyao is a broke college kid on financial aid. She's never even touched a designer bag. Her job was washing coffee cups. And ordering takeout. How could she move 38.7 billion? Qian seized Lao Zhao's tie, yanking him forward. The knot bit into Lao Zhao's neck. This is a hack. Someone tampered with the agreement. Face flushed crimson from the pressure, Lao Zhao forced Qian's fingers off and slumped back, Gasping, he rasped, "Mr. Chi, stop deluding yourself." Pointing at an additional clause on the screen, he shouted hoarsely. The clause is crystal clear. Triggered upon the beneficiary's job loss. The trust fund will divest unconditionally within 24 hours. Lao Zhao almost jabbed Qian. You fired Gu Xiao yesterday. You forced her to sign the severance agreement yourself. The second the HR system sent that email, the trust immediately received the disengagement signal. That money was never an investment in Aetherian tech. Gu Xiao parked her capital here to play house with you. Qian stumbled back 2 steps, his knees buckling. He collapsed into his executive chair. The chair's wheel lock screeched in protest. His entire body, chair and all, slid half a meter backward. His back slammed hard against the leather. It felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. His heart hammered violently against his ribs. Every beat sent a wave of vertigo crashing through him. 387 billion. Those 2 words, never meant to meet, cut like twin blades. Mercilessly gutting the pride he held so dear. Just then, Su Fei, who had been standing silently, suddenly stepped forward. She just pulled a Panamera brochure from her bag. The iceberry pink car glistened in the morning light. Su Fei's gaze wasn't on Qian. It was locked onto the screen, on the numbers and Gu Xiao's name. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Her fingers curled in slowly, crumpling the brochure's pages into a web of creases. Lao Zhao. Su Fei's voice was eerily calm. Her tone had completely shifted. All the earlier softness was gone. Are you telling me the company's accounts are empty? Lao Zhao let out a cold laugh, the corner of his mouth twisting into a mocking sneer. The wrinkles deepened. Empty is putting it mildly. Chief of Staff Su, for that Southeast Asian project, CEO Chi leveraged all the company's liquid assets, fixed assets, and his shares to banks at 10-to-1 leverage. Now that the 300 billion baseline has been pulled, the company's capital chain has completely snapped. Those tens of billions in leveraged debt have all turned into bombs. Lao Zhao turned his head, looking at Qian slumped in his chair. CEO Qi, the company is bankrupt. In less than 3 hours, the recovery teams and bailiffs will surround this building. Right now, you not only have nothing, you're also saddled with a repayment deficit in the tens of billions. A deathly silence descended upon the office. The only sounds were the faint airflow from the central AC vent, and the tick-tock of the clock on the wall. Su Fei slowly placed the Porsche brochure down on the mahogany desk. Its corner landed squarely on a document awaiting signature. The pink car clashed absurdly with the glaring numbers. Qian looked up at Su Fei. A smile, more painful than a grimace, stretched across his pale face. Don't listen to Lao Zhao's nonsense. It's a system bug. I still have my skills. My code isn't going anywhere. Once I find new investors, things will turn around fast. Qian reached out to grab Su Fei's wrist. But Su Fei's reflexes were lightning fast. She took a sharp, forceful step back, evading his touch. Qian's hand froze in midair, fingers splayed open, as if suspended in ice. Su Fei looked down. She brushed off his touch with cold disdain, as if brushing off a deadly virus. Her movements were subtle, but every detail dripped with undisguised disgust. Mr. Qi. Know your place. Su Fei spoke with icy, distant formality. Instantly, she called him Mr. Qi again. Fei Fei, what are you saying? Qian stared at her in utter disbelief. Su Fei turned away, picked up the Hermes Birkin on the sofa. He tossed a sleek hotel key card onto the desk. The card landed on the table with a slight bounce, the Grand Hyatt logo face up on the front. I said, Mr. Qi, since the company's bankrupt, we have nothing left to discuss. Su Fei smoothed her hair, adjusted the silk scarf at her collar. She looked down at Qian in his chair. I just started last week. I was still in probation. Company debt has nothing to do with me. But yesterday you said you adored my talent the most. Qian forced the words out of his throat. Talent. Sufei looked as if she had just heard the funniest joke in the world. She scoffed, her lips curled with pure mockery. Oh, Qian, don't be so naive. Without that 30 billion cushion. What's that pathetic little code of yours worth? Programmers are a dime a dozen out there. You're nothing special. Sufei picked up her bag. She glanced at the Porsche brochure. Not even bothering to take it, she turned and headed for the door. The click of her heels on the marble floor. 3 billion dowry. The sound faded away. Fei, get back here. Qian roared, his voice hoarse. He jumped up, banging his knee against the desk. But the pain didn't matter. Sufei didn't even look back. Her heels clicked away from the CEO's door without regret. Qian stared at the empty doorway. It felt like a sledgehammer to the chest. He clutched his heart. He doubled over, coughing violently. He coughed violently, face turning blotchy red. The veins on his neck bulged out, one by one. He threw his wife out for this woman to prove his charm. She bolted faster than a stray when she saw his last 200. But this was only the beginning of the avalanche. Suddenly, a chaotic rush of footsteps echoed in the hallway. The office door was violently thrown open. Core executives burst in, frantic as ants on a skillet. The VP of operations was at the front of the pack, holding a tablet computer high in his hand. Screen flashed red. Mr. Qi. Catastrophic failure. The VP of operations was drenched in sweat. Sweat dripped from his temples, soaking his collar. Alibaba Cloud just shut down all our server ports. They said our account is delinquent. Our entire line of credit has been wiped to zero. The company's core operations are now in a total, global blackout. Qian's mind went blank. He opened his mouth. His lips trembled uselessly, unable to speak. Mr. Qi. The chief legal officer pushed his way in right after. He was frantically waving a red-stamped document. The paper was crumpled and worn at the edges from his grip. Legal letters from 2 major banks hit my personal inbox. They filed for pre-action asset preservation in court, demanding immediate freeze of all your properties and cars. That includes your villa in Xiangshan. Seizure notices were posted on it half an hour ago. HR Director Laoli stood trembling by the door. His glasses slipped as he wiped sweat from his forehead. She whispered, Mr. Qi, the zeroed account screenshot leaked. The employees downstairs have gone completely insane. Over 300 are blocking HR right now. They're demanding their final paychecks and termination letters. Security's lost control. It's total chaos. The servers are fried. The staff is in open revolt. This 100 billion empire, now stripped of 38.7 billion capital. It was a house of cards. And in just 10 minutes, it's facing total, catastrophic implosion. No one can save him. Qian's vision started to blur. The shouting, the pleas, the arguments from his executives. Their despair merged into a piercing shriek of tinnitus. He couldn't make out their words anymore. He just felt the noise drifting further and further away, like muffled echoes from deep underwater. He stared at the Porsche catalog Sufei had tossed onto the desk. He stared at the humiliating 200 yuan on the screen. He stared at Gu Shuyao at the bottom of the agreement. 3 years. Gu Shuyao made his porridge for him every single morning. Gu Shuyao stayed up late correcting his disastrous finances. Gu Shuyao silently endured Sufei's insults without complaint. She wasn't unable to leave him. She watched a clown juggle the crown she gave him. He swept the god holding his fate out like garbage. A rasping wail of despair clawed from Qian's throat. Like the final whimper of a beast with a spear through its heart. His hands trembling uncontrollably, he frantically scrabbled through the papers on his desk for his phone. It was buried under a mountain of documents. He seized it. His panicked fingers kept entering the wrong passcode. Finally, it unlocked. He opened his contacts, found the number listed as Gu Shuyao, and slammed the call button with his thumb. The receiver chimed back a mechanical voice. We're sorry. The number you have dialed is a disconnected number. Sorry. The number you dialed does not exist. The phone slipped through Chi Yan's nerveless fingers. It smashed on the floor, screen fracturing like a spider web. Shards of glass flew up and landed on the tops of his shoes. Chi Yan's knees buckled. He slid off his leather executive chair and collapsed onto the cold marble floor like a crumpled heap of mud. The hallway echoed with pounding footsteps and shouting. Creditors demanding payment broke through the bailiff's line. They were closing in on the CEO's office. Aetherian Tech Human Resources Records Room. Brown paper personnel files crammed into metal cabinets. The cabinet doors were open, the folders a total disaster. Chi Yan grabbed the HR director, Lowly, by the collar with both fists. She slammed him hard against the steel filing cabinet. The cabinet burst open, folders tumbling out. Papers scattered. Her contact. Her address. Her parents' phone number, find it. Chi Yan's voice was raw, hoarse. It scraped out like sandpaper against rusted metal. Lowly strangled, his eyes rolling back white. His hands flailed, slapping wildly at Chi Yan's arm. He raked Chi Yan's hand. When Director Gu joined, her personnel file was approved by you personally. Fast-tracked, off the books. Lowly choked out, his throat tight. She didn't fill in anything. Her only contact was you. Chi Yan's grip went slack. Lowly slid down the cabinet and collapsed on the floor. Gasping for breath, a ragged wheeze rattling from his throat. Chi Yan stumbled back 2 steps. His spine hit another row of file cabinets. Archive boxes on top toppled, crashing down on him. Boxes pounded him, spilling files everywhere. He didn't even flinch. Just let them hit him. Paper edges grazed his cheek, leaving red scratches. 3 years. 3 years in the same bed. And only now did it hit him. He knew nothing about Gu Xiao's past, her family, or her friends. Nothing at all. She was a shadow, conjured out of thin air. Seeping into his life, silent and seamless. Taking care of every insignificant detail of his existence. Then the moment he signed that termination agreement, she vanished. Wiped every trace of herself clean. Her desk. Chi Yan spun around. Like a man grasping at one last, desperate straw, he stumbled, half running, toward the office floor. The once bustling workplace was now a wasteland. Security corralled the agitated staff into the lobby. Through the doors, the dark crowd still roiled. Some held up phones, recording. Others ripped off their employee badges, hurling them to the ground. Most of the computers on the desks had been carted away, gutted. Only discarded printouts and shredded paper remained. It was all trampled underfoot, tracking everywhere. Chi Yan rushed to the smallest workstation, tucked away in the corner. The desktop was spotless. No coffee mug. No lumbar pillow. Even the drawers were cleaned out, spotless. The keyboard tray was empty. A faint dust ring on the stand marked the screen. Chi Yan's eyes darted around wildly. He spotted the trash can and lunged for it. He dumped it upside down onto the carpet. Crash. A pile of crumpled waste paper and wet coffee grounds spilled out. There, in the middle of the mess, was a picture frame. The glass broke into a spiderweb pattern. Cracks radiated from the center outward. Each line was like a tiny needle, piercing Chi Yan's eyes. He knelt on the floor, ignoring the glass shards slicing his fingers. He pulled the photo from the wreckage. It was a picture of them during the startup days, in the basement. In the photo, Gu Xiao wore a cheap white t-shirt. The collar stretched and worn, holding a cup of instant noodles. Her smile made her eyes curve like crescent moons. The corners of her mouth lifted in a genuine, warm arc, revealing that tiny canine tooth on the left. He stood beside her, one hand pointing at the leaking ceiling above. The other hand resting on her shoulder, his chin slightly raised. Full of solemn, unshakable vows. A drop of dark red blood fell from Chi Yan's fingertip, landing on Gu Xiao's smiling face in the photo. The blood seeped into the photo paper's coating, quickly spreading into a dark, circular stain. Chi Yan's eyelids twitched violently. He saw the black notebook pressed under the photo. He grabbed it, dragging his fingers across the pages. A ripping sound as he flipped to the first page. March 12th. Chi Yan's stomach pain flared up. Doctor advised stopping ibuprofen. Got herbs from Wang. Waking at 4 a.m. to brew them. May 20th. He forgot our anniversary. Said he had to meet a client. Sufei's profile pic, a glass of Hyatt red wine. Helped him settle the VAM on the deal today. August 9th. The code crashed again. Logic error on line 4092. Logged into the backend while he was asleep to fix it. Qian's fingers suddenly froze. His knuckles turned a ghastly white from the pressure. His fingernails nearly digging into the notebook's pages. His breath stopped completely in that moment. Code crash. Logic error. He stared deadly at those words. A buzzing sound deep inside his skull. This was his untouchable nerve, a line that could never be crossed. He believed his core architecture was pure genius. The soul propping up 100 billion valuation. He had bragged countless times at dinners to investors. That even top engineers in Silicon Valley couldn't write his code. Those obscure technical terms bounced from his mouth. Carrying an aura of indisputable confidence, Qian threw the notebook down and stumbled to his feet. He rushed towards the tech department head's computer nearby, the only machine still on the test server. A thin layer of dust coated the black tower casing. The screen was still on, displaying the system login. He shoved the chair out of his way. Its legs shrieked horribly against the floor. He sat down, his index finger hammering wildly at the keyboard. He called up the changelog for the core code repository. 3 years of backend access records cascaded down the screen. Login time, 2:14 a.m. IP address, local operation. Fix, memory overflow infinite loop. Login time, 3:05 a.m. IP address, local operation. Fix, rewrote database indexing logic. Login time, 1:45 a.m. IP address, local operation. Fix, sealed payment interface vulnerability. Every entry was authorized with just one letter, M. Qian's legs buckled. He collapsed on the keyboard, gibberish exploding across the screen. The enter key jammed under his weight, stuttering endlessly. There was no genius brain. No unassailable, foundational logic. The technological bedrock of this billion-dollar empire was nothing but a rotting, patchwork mess. It was the woman who did his laundry every day, the one he mocked for not understanding a single line of code, who, in the dead of every night while he slept, had used her real skills to prop up this crumbling tower brick by brick. A laugh tore from Qian, uglier than a sob. His lips twisted into a grotesque rictus, his Adam's apple bobbing. The sound scraped itself out from the depths of his throat. A death rattle wheeze. The capital he flaunted? She gave it to him. The technology he relied on? She fixed it for him. What right did he have to throw her out? A violent spasm suddenly seized his stomach. An invisible fist clamped down on his guts, twisting viciously. Qian clutched his abdomen, curling up in agony on the carpet. He shrunk into a tight ball, back arched. Forehead grinding against the floor. Without that warm thermos placed punctually on his desk every day, the familiar cramping had become unbearably acute. As if it meant to tear him open from the inside. Yow yow. Drenched in cold sweat from the pain, he scrambled on all fours towards the trash pile. He seized the shattered frame, clutching it to his chest like a lifeline. Glass shards bit into his palms, blood dripping through his fingers. 3 p.m. A high-end apartment under Deep CVC's name, Eastside. The living room lights were off. Heavy blackout drapes kept the afternoon sun completely at bay. The room was steeped in a muted gray-blue dimness. A razor-thin blade of light slipped through the curtain gap. It caught the rug's edge, a sharp bright line in the dark. Gu Xiao sat barefoot on the wool carpet. Deep charcoal gray, the pile was thick and long. It felt like sinking into a cloud. She was in her loungewear. Soft gray cotton pants and a simple white crewneck. Her hair fell loosely over her shoulders, ends curling slightly. On the coffee table sat a glass of water, long gone cold. A fine layer of condensation purled on the glass. Beside it lay a yellowing hospital receipt. Its edges were frayed to fuzz, the creases nearly split in two. The date was from a summer, 3 years ago. The item line read, deep dorsal laceration. 11 sutures. Total cost, 680 yuan. Gu Xiao stared at the receipt. Her shoulders caved inward, just slightly. Her usually straight back suddenly looked frail. She reached out and brushed her fingertip against the frail paper. Its rough grain rasped against her print. Tiny, needling barbs pierced the skin of her finger pad. A small, sharp sting. A sour, swollen ache climbed up her throat. She swallowed hard, trying to force it back down. But her vision blurred, beyond her control. The scrawled script on the receipt smeared before her eyes. The ink bled out into cloudy, gray-blue halos. A single tear fell, hitting the receipt without warning. It bloomed through the characters, the ink thinning to water. Spreading outward. Gu Xiao closed her eyes. Her right hand clenched tight, fisting the fabric over her chest. Her knuckles whitened. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Her bottom lip bore faint teeth marks. 3 years. She wasn't a machine. Over 1,000 days of swallowing her pride. Of setting a table full of hope, only to be met with cold mockery. Every grievance she'd choked down alone in the dark. All of it, now raw and solid agony, triggered by this one receipt. She could have been the heiress of deep sea, untouchable and high. It was this man. The bottle he'd thrown himself in front of for her. That was what had made her walk willingly into the gutter. She thought gratitude could morph into love. But she forgot. In capitalism, absolute sacrifice only breeds insatiable monsters. Her body began a fine, subtle tremor. It crept from her fingertips to her shoulders. Then ran down her spine, making her calves quake. She grit her teeth in the darkness, forbidding a single sound to escape. But every breath in her chest was a suppressed, shuddering sob. This was her last minute of weakness. Knock. Knock. 2 soft raps on the door to her suite. Miss, Arthur's voice cut through the oak door, rigid as ever. There's a development at Aetherian Tech. Gu Xiao's eyes snapped open. Their vulnerability vanished in a flash. Like a thin splinter of ice, it sunk without a trace. She pulled a tissue from the coffee table, pressing against her eye, wiping the moisture hard. When she stood up, her spine was ramrod straight again. Shoulders squared, chin lifted. Enter. Arthur pushed the door open, holding a tablet. He bowed his head, eyes on the carpet's edge. He ignored her red eyes. Qian is searching for you. He's checked every company surveillance feed and personnel file. Now he's driving around the city in a borrowed car. Let him be. Gu Xiao walked over to the wet bar and poured herself a glass of ice water. The glass fogged up instantly. She downed it in one go. The cold liquid cut a path down her throat, hitting her stomach and dousing the last flicker of warmth. But, Miss, Arthur paused. He just went to that basement in the South District. The landline you left there, the signal just went active. He's dialing the number. Gu Xiao's fingers tightened around the glass. Condensation ran between her fingers, dripping onto the bar counter. The South District basement. It was their first base, back in the startup days. An office converted from an abandoned bike shed. A furnace in the summer, a freezer in the winter. She had that landline installed for Qian's stomach issues. Patched directly to her personal phone. When she left, she'd cut every connection. But forgot that one, ancient number. Noted. Patch it through. She set the glass down. Arthur tapped on the tablet, then handed her a black encrypted phone. The screen lit up with an unfamiliar incoming call number. A local area code, Old City Quarter. Gu Xiao hit the answer key, raising the phone to her ear. Heavy breathing came from the other end, mixed with the dull drumming of rain on a tin roof. The line quality was terrible. A crackle of static hissing through, punctuated by the distant, blurred horn of a car. Yao Yao. Qian's voice was so hoarse it was deformed, like it had been scraped raw with sandpaper, laced with desperate urgency and caution. Is that you, Yao Yao? Just listen to me. Gu Xiao stared out the window at the sullen sky, where lead gray clouds pressed down low. A sliver of pale light traced the edge. She uttered a single word, so calm it was completely flat. That one word instantly shattered Chien on the other end of the line. His voice immediately cracked, a sob catching in his throat, mixed with the wet air being sucked violently into his lungs. I was wrong. Lao Zhao showed me the agreement. I know all that money was yours. I'm a bastard. I was blinded by that bitch Sufei. I kicked her out today. Yao Yao, please come back. The company can't survive without you. I can't survive without you. Gu Xiao listened, her face a mask of indifference. Her gaze settled on her reflection in the glass window. She could see her own blurred outline. Are you finished? Chien choked on her icy tone. A weird, gurgling sound came from his throat. Like phlegm stuck there. Yao Yao. You're punishing me, aren't you? You're mad I humiliated you. He said fast. His words sped up, tumbling over each other. Every syllable reeked of a desperate man grasping at a lifeline. The courts sealed my house, the banks are calling in the debts. I've lost everything. You've had your revenge by now. You pulled funding, but it can't go bankrupt. If you just transfer the money back, even 10%, we can get through this. Gu Xiao cut him off. I'm listening. Chien's voice pitched higher, frantic. Bankruptcy is the court's issue, not mine. How can it have nothing to do with you? Chien panicked. From the other end came the sound of a chair crashing over. You're a founder of Aetherian, too. We built this from nothing. How can you stand by and watch everything we bled for be destroyed? Even without that 30+ billion, as long as my core architecture is intact, with my skills, I can rebuild Aetherian in 2 years. Trust me. You've always known I'm a genius. A flicker of mockery crossed Gu Xiao's eyes. A faint, cold smile touched the corner of her lips, then vanished. Your technology, right, that core algorithm, the most sophisticated logic in the entire industry. A hint of mania rekindled in Chien's voice. With this, VCs will definitely give us another shot. Gu Xiao walked toward the floor-to-ceiling window. She gazed down at traffic, finally speaking. Her voice was very soft, yet every word carried crushing weight. What's the code on line 4092? The voice on the other end of the phone died in his throat. Only rapid, shallow breaths echoed in the receiver, mixed with electric hum. Why ask about that? Chien's voice started to tremble, laced with the panic of being exposed. Answer me. Gu Xiao's tone left no room for argument. That's the memory release instruction. Chien stammered out. It's an infinite loop. Gu Xiao's voice remained utterly nonchalant. It slammed into Chien's nerves. From your first day? Your genius architecture caused crashes each 2 a.m. When daily users hit 10,000, the servers melted down. Impossible. The system never crashed. Because for 3 years, every single night after you fell asleep, I used your birthday, logged in, and cleared the cache. I patched it. Every word Gu Xiao uttered made Chien's breathing more ragged and desperate. I didn't log in last night. So this morning, before Alibaba Cloud could sever the port, your system was already dead in the water. Xiao stared at her cool reflection. Chien. That billion-dollar empire you're so disgustingly proud of is built on a logic error that even a goddamn intern wouldn't make. A deathly silence fell on the other end of the line. Only static and distant muffled pile drivers remained. Thudding, one after another, a dull, rhythmic beat. Chien's knuckles were bone-white as he gripped the phone. The pads of his fingers pressed down so hard on the plastic casing that the receiver was almost crushed, emitting a faint, brittle creak. His mind went completely blank. His last shred of dignity was ripped away by Gu Xiao. He had believed he conquered the capital world with his brilliance. He was a worthless man, propped up by his wife's money and sleepless nights. You knew all along. Chien's voice was barely a whisper. Yes. Then why didn't you say anything? Because you said it was your dream. Gu Xiao finished speaking. She didn't give Chien any chance to respond. She handed the phone to Arthur beside her. Her voice resumed its unhurried calm. Terminate this line. Deactivate it permanently. Arthur took the phone. His fingertips tapped the screen twice. The call timer flickered twice, then reset to 0. A dead tone echoed from the receiver. Chien stood like a soul-stripped sculpture, frozen in the center of the dust-choked room. The old landline receiver still clutched in his hand, the plastic casing slick with sweat from his palm. Slowly, he lowered the receiver. The metal cradle clicked back into place. The wrenching pain in his stomach hit again, more vicious this time than ever before. Like a dull blade churning through his gut. His legs buckled beneath him. He collapsed onto the freezing, damp concrete floor. His knees hit the ground with a sickening thud. Dust billowed up, swirling in the dim light. A primal, dying animal roar tore from his throat. Echoing through the empty basement, he clutched his head. His fingers twisted deep into his hair, yanking hard. His scalp went numb from the pulling. Regret. Despair tangled together into one, obliterating the last of his mental defenses. Just then, hurried footsteps sounded outside the basement door. The rickety wooden door was shoved open from the outside. 2 blinding flashlight beams cut straight through, striking Chien's pale, drained face, making him squint against the glare. "We're the Economic Crimes Unit. The bank reported you for major fraud. Come with us," the officer said coldly. Every word sounded like it was recited straight from a textbook. The beam of the flashlight swept across Chien's face for a second, then shifted away. Light exposed mold and water stains behind him. Chien didn't resist. He didn't even lift his head. He just watched a black ant crawl across the floor. Watched it navigate around a patch of peeling paint and vanish into a crack. His lips moved neurotically, repeating a name like a broken mantra. The sound was a garbled, sputtering mess. Yao Yao. I need her. 3 days later. The Obsidian Marble Plaza in front of Deep Sea Ventures China HQ. A torrential downpour hammered the ground. The rain came down in sheets, throwing up a blanket of white mist. The dark marble was polished to a slick, reflective shine, mirroring the grim sky and surrounding towers. The storm was merciless. The wind drove the rain sideways. The noise was like gravel poured from the sky. It was a relentless, pounding noise. Chien was soaked to the bone, cowering behind a pillar like a stray dog. His 50-grand suit was a crumpled mess. The fabric was drenched into a dark, shapeless gray. A faded mud stain was still visible on the shoulder. He got bail by giving up everything he owned. His bank cards were all frozen. He was so broke he couldn't even afford a cab. He had walked there, through the rain, the whole way. A march of nearly 3 hours. From the south end to the city's priciest district. His shoes were waterlogged. Every step produced a sickening, squelching sound. The skin on his soles was already pruned and dead white. His eyes fixed on the revolving glass doors. A black Rolls-Royce Phantom sliced through the curtain of rain, gliding to a silent, powerful stop before the front steps. Countless beads of water clung to the car's pristine finish. The windshield wipers swung back and forth with a steady rhythm, clearing 2 perfect arcs of visibility. The door opened. A butler stepped out, opening a black umbrella. The instant the canopy snapped open, water cascaded off the edges in a flawless, uniform curtain. Gu Xiao stepped out. She wore a sharply tailored, dark gray trench coat. The fabric was crisp, the shoulder line was lethal. A subtle, narrow pleat cinched the waist. Her hair was in a tight, ruthless bun. A pearl stud gleamed coldly in the gloom. There was not a single superfluous accessory on her, not one. Yet she exuded an oppressive authority, impossible to meet her gaze. The hem of her trench coat swayed gently with each stride. Chien's eyes blazed with sudden intensity. He grabbed the edge of the stone pillar and launched himself forward from his crouched position, stumbling headlong into the downpour. Yao Yao. His voice was as ragged as if it had been ground down with sandpaper, shattering and scattering into pieces under the relentless rain. 2 towering bodyguards in black suits stepped forward instantly. planting themselves like a steel wall in front of Gu Shuyao. Their crossed arms formed an impenetrable barricade. Unable to stop his momentum, Qian crashed hard into one of the bodyguard's arms. The rebounding force sent him staggering back. He slipped and fell down the mud-soaked steps. Murky water splashed up, smearing across his face, dripping down his jaw, and splattering onto his crumpled, filthy dress shirt. Gu Xiao stopped walking. She stood in the shadow of a black umbrella, looking down coldly at the man struggling in the mud. Rain streaming off the umbrella formed a thin veil before her, separating the rain from her world. Not a single drop of water marred the pristine hem of her trench coat. Qian scrambled to his feet on all fours, not bothering to wipe the mud from his face, staring desperately at Gu Xiao through the wall of bodyguards. His bloodshot eyes were deeply sunken, cheekbones jutting sharply. He had wasted away. Yao Yao. I finally found you. Qian's voice wavered in the rain, shattered by the wind. I told the police everything. The financial gaps, Lao Zhao managed those alone. I didn't know anything. I'm out on bail now. His mud-stained hands gestured frantically in the air. If you would just sign a letter of forgiveness? Tell the police the 30 billion was just a marital asset transfer. I won't go to prison. The company can still be saved. Gu Xiao looked at him. Her voice was flat. The trust was notarized the day before we married. Qian's breath hitched violently in his chest. His eyelid twitched manically. The hand he had been reaching out froze rigidly in midair. Premarital assets. She'd calculated everything with surgical precision. Qian swallowed a mouthful of rainwater, his Adam's apple bobbing painfully. He shifted tactics in an instant, forcing a pleading expression onto his face, his eyes red-rimmed. Tears and rain streaming down his face. Yao Yao. It was my fault. I was fooled by that woman, Su Fei. That day in the boardroom, I was just furious and confused. That project meant everything to the company. I didn't mean to drive you away. He took a desperate step forward. He pleaded, using the same desperate tone that had worked for 3 years, hoping to sway her. That company was something we built together. How could I possibly not want you around? Gu Xiao watched him calmly. Didn't mean to? It was just a momentary lapse. Right, right. Qian latched onto her words like a lifeline, nodding frantically. The muddy water on his face splattered with emotion. You know I have a bad temper. The pressure from fundraising has been crushing me lately. I just needed an outlet. In my heart, it's always been you. 9:05 a.m., Tuesday. Gu Xiao cut him off. Qian froze. His expression solidified in that instant. His lips still held the pathetic curve of his plea. Attorney Sun drafted a waiver, surrendering all marital assets. Gu Xiao's eyelids lowered slightly. Her gaze fell on the mud-caked tips of Qian's shoes. Su Fei sabotaged the contract on Wednesday afternoon. You were already plotting to leave me penniless. Qian's teeth began to chatter. They clacked together as his fingers dug desperately into his palms. His nails bit deep, knuckles turning deathly white. How could she possibly know? He had contacted Attorney Sun strictly through his personal phone. Even Lao Zhao, the CFO, had no idea this agreement existed. He'd planned to force Xiao's signature before the IPO using this document. To kick her out completely, without a single penny. Did you truly believe Aetherian tech had any secrets I couldn't uncover? Gu Xiao's tone was flat, as if stating a trivial matter that had nothing to do with her. Qian stumbled back half a step. His heel landed in a puddle, icy water flooding his shoe. So cold it bit to the bone. All of his excuses, his lies, even the deep affection he'd tried to fake, became a pathetic joke against her absolute information dominance. He couldn't accept it. He couldn't let it end like this. Fine. I admit I had selfish motives. Qian suddenly yelled. Rain streamed into his mouth, but he didn't care to wipe it away. But I don't want anything now, Yao Yao. I'll give you 80% of the company's shares. You can be the chairwoman. Just bring the funding back. We still hold the core code. We can still rebuild an empire. Your core code. Yes, the underlying architecture. A mad light burned in Qian's eyes. His eyeballs practically bulging out. That's my life's work. It happened at 10 o'clock this morning. Gu Xiao delivered her conclusion with an air of casual ease. Court authorized disposal of all 300 servers for scrap. The proceeds covered the staff's back pay. Your precious code? It's been wiped. It's just electronic waste now. Qian's Adam's apple convulsed painfully. He swallowed hard, spitting out a mouthful of saliva mixed with rain. His last shred of fantasy was completely obliterated. No company. No shares. Even the code he was so proud of was now just scrap metal. The woman before him hadn't just drained his blood. She removed every last screw from his skeleton. A heavy thud echoed as Qian's knees buckled. He knelt in the downpour, dirty water splashing around him. Droplets of mud flew up, soaking the hem of Gu Xiao's trench coat. They left a trail of dark, wet spots on the gray fabric. Qian shuffled forward on his knees, ignoring the bodyguards, and reached for the edge of Gu Xiao's dress. He stretched his fingers out. His mud-caked fingertips were just inches from that dry, pristine coat. When a bodyguard's arm shot out, blocking him. Yao Yao. I was wrong. I swear, I know I screwed up. Qian wept, a messy mixture of snot and tears. Smeared all over his face. Without warning, he raised his hand, and slapped himself hard across the face. Twice. The sharp claps were jarringly loud, cutting through the heavy rain. His cheeks swelled instantly, turning an angry red. Blood seeped from his mouth, diluted by rain down his chin. I'm scum. Less than human. Qian looked up. His face a mask indistinguishable from tears and rain. But Yao Yao. Think about what we used to have. Remember sharing that 1 cup of instant noodles in the basement? That night, when those thugs came at us with knives? I took a bottle to the head for you. Got 11 stitches. The doctor said it nearly severed my spinal cord. You said you'd take care of me forever. You can't just watch me die. He had finally played his last card. The life debt he'd used to blackmail her for 3 years. Gu Xiao looked down at the man groveling and sobbing at her feet. Her eyes held no trace of pain, nor a flicker of love. She was serene as if staring at a stranger on the street. The rain formed a perfect curtain along the edge of her umbrella, separating her face from the filthy world outside. The Gu Xiao who once couldn't sleep if he even frowned was dead and gone. She took a half step back, precisely dodging his mud-covered hands. Her heel clicked softly against the step as she retreated. Qian, she said, her voice barely a whisper, but it cut through the heavy rain with deadly precision. Every syllable slammed into Qian's eardrums. You saved me once, years ago. I repaid you with 387 billion and 3 years of servitude. Qian's sobs choked off in his throat. As if an invisible hand seized his neck, he froze. His lips parted, revealing rain-soaked teeth. Like he was looking at a complete stranger. From the moment you told me to get lost, she looked down at him, spitting out the final words, one by one. We're even. Qian's pupils constricted violently, shrinking to 2 pinprick-sized black holes. Those words were like an icy steel deadbolt, slamming shut every possible door to salvation. His mouth hung open, emitting only a rasping, hollow wheeze, like his throat was packed with soaking wet cotton. He couldn't muster a single word in protest. Gu Xiao turned around. She had her butler courier the divorce decree to his lawyer. Her tone was as casual as taking out the trash. Mississippi. The butler bowed his head deeply. Gu Xiao didn't spare him a single glance back. She strode away on her heels, her steps steady on the marble. Her stiletto heels clicked against the floor, a crisp and rhythmic sound of finality. She pushed open the glass doors of the global headquarters. The doors rotated with a low, mechanical hum. Her silhouette vanished behind the glass, and the doors slowly closed. That gray trench coat was sealed away from Qian's world forever. Qian collapsed in the downpour. The relentless rain lashed at his face without mercy. Rain poured down his collar, freezing a path down his spine. His hands lay useless in the mud, knuckles twitching weakly. His eyelids went slack. All that remained was a desperate, unending tremor of defeat. A security guard stood before him, bending down to say something he didn't hear. A moment later, the guard reached out, hauling him up from the mud by his arms. His legs were like wet noodles, dragged limply across the plaza. 1 week later. Deep Sea Ventures China HQ, 68th floor waiting room. Chi Yan clutched the debt restructuring proposal in a death grip. The cold sweat from his palms had already softened the paper's edges. The pages were damp and clammy, the corners starting to curl. His $50,000 suit was now a wrinkled mess. There were signs of pilling on the fabric. A small, greasy stain marked the collar. He didn't know if it was from a meal or dried mud. I don't know if it was from a hurried meal or dried mud from his last fall. The lawyer next to him glanced at his watch, impatient. He shifted his weight away from Chi Yan. The chair wheels slid across the carpet with a quiet, grating sound. Mr. Chi, allow me to remind you again. The lawyer's tone was icy. His voice was nasal, like he had a cold. Deep Sea Venture Capital is a top-tier global firm. The fact that they've granted you a 5-minute hearing today is purely a humanitarian formality. Your company currently carries a net debt of $6 billion. If this restructuring application is rejected, you'll face forced liquidation and a criminal suit. Chi Yan swallowed hard, his throat tight. His Adam's apple bobbed painfully, a muffled sound escaping his lips. His thumb rubbed back and forth across the cover of his proposal, smudging the printed text into a blur. They'll agree to it. Chi Yan stared at the closed mahogany doors, unwavering. A manic, desperate fervor flickered in his eyes, his pupils dilated. The burst blood vessels in the whites of his eyes hadn't yet faded. The underlying code for that trust account, HY387. Even though Gu Shuyao was the trigger, the one who pulled the capital was high up at Deep Sea. If I can just get in front of their real decision maker, if I can just walk them through the new logic model, they'll see my value. The lawyer didn't respond. He just watched Chi Yan as if he were a lunatic. The corners of his mouth turning downward. Click. The heavy mahogany doors slowly swung open, their movement sending a faint draft that rustled the leaves of the potted plant in the hallway. Arthur, the butler in a tailcoat, emerged. He held a list in his hand, his gaze pausing on Chi Yan for a single second. His expression revealed absolutely nothing. Aetherian tech. The applicant may now enter. Chi Yan shot to his feet. He stood up so fast his vision went black and he saw stars. His knee slammed violently against the edge of the coffee table, the sharp pain stealing his breath. Ignoring it completely, he grabbed his crumpled application and stumbled after Arthur into the boardroom. It was a circular conference room, easily 200 square meters. A huge window framed the city's financial center. Under the stark gray sky, countless office towers rose like a forest of steel and concrete. Rooftop helipads and antennas were starkly visible. 12 counselors and senior partners stood around the table. Men and women alike, all appearing to be around 40. A secure terminal sat before each of them, screens glowing, displaying various data dashboards. So silent, only the faint hum of the AC was audible. A wide black executive chair sits far off. Its back is turned toward the door. Gray suit fabric drapes the armrest, and a hand resting on it. The wrist is slender and impeccably pale. It's wearing a watch with no logo. The dial is minimalist silver, devoid of any brand markings. A unique piece by a Swiss master. Chi Yan stands at the opposite end of the long table. He feels like a prisoner waiting to be sentenced. His legs start to tremble uncontrollably. It's like ice water has been injected into his knee joints. H. Honorable Board of Deep Sea Venture Capital. Chi Yan's voice echoes in the cavernous meeting room. It's audibly trembling. Every single word shakes. I am Chi Yan, founder of Aetherian Tech. My plan can recover your losses. The figure stays silent, unmoving. The hand on the armrest remains completely still. The second hand on the wristwatch sweeps with excruciating slowness. Chi Yan wipes the cold sweat from his forehead. The back of his hand comes away slick with greasy perspiration. He flips open the proposal in his hand. His voice pitches higher. HY 387 divestment was her revenge. She exploited a loophole in the agreement. But Ethereum Tech's core asset is my brain. If you just freeze the debt collection process and inject another 500 million, no, 300M can rewrite the architecture. Your brain can save the company. A calm, an icy voice cuts him off. Qian's voice dies in his throat. His eyelid twitches violently. His pupils shrink. That voice. He's heard it every morning. Heard it whispering in his ear, your porridge is on the stove. Calling doctors for his stomach. The black leather executive chair slowly swivels around. Gu Shuyao is sitting there. She's wearing a sharply tailored, charcoal gray pantsuit. Sharp shoulders, diamond brooch. It catches the cool lighting, casting off a few fractured glints. Sleek chignon, no heavy makeup. Just a faint, understated color on her lips. Glacial eyes slice the distance. And pinning Qian's face with surgical precision. There's no anger in that gaze. No hatred. Not even the slightest flicker of excess emotion. Just an absolute, undeniable sense of total control. 12 top lawyers bowed together. Chairs scraped in perfect sync. As if rehearsed 100 times before. Qian's proposal thudded on the carpet. The pages fell open, revealing dense spreadsheets and figures. Scattered across the floor at his feet. His brain completely short-circuited in that instant. His lips parted slightly, letting out a meaningless gasp. Yao yao. Qian's eyes widened, nearly splitting at the corners. Bloodshot and bulging, he lunged forward. His hand slammed flat on the table, fingers splayed. His nails screeched on the wood. Why are you in that chair? Gu Xiao said nothing. She just watched him. Qian's mind spiraled into absolute chaos. His pride refused to accept the image burning into his retinas. He whipped his head toward Arthur standing nearby. Then back to the suit-clad partners. His voice cracked in fury. She's Gu Xiao. She's just my housewife. She must have stolen my key card to sneak in here. He screamed hysterically. His trembling finger pointed right at Gu Xiao. Security. Get this irrelevant woman out of here. I demand to see whoever is really in charge. No one in the conference room acknowledged his ranting. Gu Xiao raised her right hand slightly. And tapped her index finger softly on the table. Tap. A faint, muffled sound, like a pebble dropped into deep water. 12 executives sat in sync. The scrape of chair legs against the floor echoed as one single sound. Their movements were silent and highly disciplined. Every gaze converged toward the head of the table. Not a single person looked at Qian. Qian's shouts died in his throat. Like it was physically choked out of him. He staggered half a step backward. His heel catching the edge of the carpet, nearly losing his balance. Gu Xiao leaned back in her chair. Her eyes resting on Qian's pale, twisted face. She uttered 2 words. Proceed. Arthur flipped open the registry in his hand, cleared his throat. And reloaded the microphone in a stiff, London accent of Chinese. Ms. Gu Xiao. Sole legal heir of Deep Sea Venture Capital Global. Current executive chairwoman of Asia Pacific Operations. Bearing absolute veto power over all board decisions. Qian's legs finally gave out completely. He collapsed onto the carpet, landing hard on his knees. His knees hit the floor, shockingly loud in the silence. A dull, heavy weight of defeat. His fingers clawed desperately at the carpet fibers. His knuckles turning a ghastly, deathly white. His nails dug into the wool, his chest heaving violently. Yet he couldn't draw a single breath. Air. Chief Executive Director. Veto power. Those 3 words were like 3 sledgehammers, shattering the arrogant, prideful illusion he'd built his world on. He finally grasped how 38.7B vanished overnight, unopposed. He finally understood why, in the rain, she said they were even. She wasn't some clinging vine looking for a tree to climb. She was the vast, deep ocean itself, and he was drowning in her. Yao Yao, Qian knelt there, lifting his head to look at the woman at the end of the long table. Tears and snot mingled together, tracing several glistening, pathetic trails down his face. I didn't know you owned deep-sea venture capital. If I had known, I would never, ever have fired you over some woman. It was all Sufei, she seduced me. Qian clutched at this last, desperate straw. Frantically shifting blame, his words tumbled out faster. Each syllable was laced with a frantic, almost convulsive urgency. I made a terrible mistake. Yao Yao, we have 3 years of history. I saved your life. Think of the 11 stitches I took on my back for you. Give me one more chance. Just sign off on the restructuring, and I swear I'll be your slave for life. Gu Xiao watched his pathetic groveling, her eyes devoid of any emotion. She raised her hand and flipped open a thin file on the table. The soft rustle of the paper was deafening. Grand Cayman. Account number ending in 770042. Qian's sobbing stopped instantly. His pupils constricted into 2 tiny, terrified dots. The blood drained from his body in an instant. An icy chill shot up his spine to the top of his head. Even his scalp went numb. Wah, what did you say? Qian's voice was a thread, thin and frayed, squeezed from deep in his throat. The 5th of last month. Under the name of Aetherian Tech. You funneled 150M in assets to this offshore shell company. Gu Xiao lifted her eyes. Her gaze was sharp, precise as a scalpel. Planning to take the money and flee overseas with Sufei post-IPO. Am I right? Qian's teeth began chattering uncontrollably. A grating click-clack-click sound. Ramming together, top and bottom. He couldn't stop. He thought he'd pulled off the perfect crime. Thought he'd pulled the wool over CFO Lao Zhao's eyes. This was his last escape hatch. Even if the company went bankrupt today, as long as no one found that money, he could still rise from the ashes after prison. I didn't, Qian tried to protest. But his tongue had turned to stone. Couldn't force out a single coherent word. Gu Xiao didn't even bother acknowledging his denial. She pressed on. The 5 billion leveraged loan slip from Merchants Bank. The anti-counterfeiting pattern on the company seal is missing a line. She slid the document forward half an inch. Her fingertip tapped the paper. You paid $200 for a fake seal under a slum overpass. Isn't that right? Qian was struck completely mute. His body dissolved into a heap of mud, collapsed on the carpet. Limbs splayed, eyelids twitching violently. A desperate, ragged gasp escaped from his throat. Like a drowning man expelling his last lungful of air underwater. She knew everything from the first day he moved the assets. From the second he forged the seals to defraud the bank loans. This woman had been watching from a god's eye view. Watching coldly as he danced a mad dance at the cliff's edge. She even knew exactly how much cash he spent on that fake seal. He shamelessly accused her of ruining a 30B deal in that boardroom. Telling her to get out of her own company. The absurd comparison. Gu Xiao didn't spare Qian another glance. She closed the file. Turned to the chief legal officer on her left. Her voice, soft but ice-cold. She read it like a pre-written verdict. Deep CVC rejects defaulting debtor bids. 1 vote veto. Execute bankruptcy liquidation. Yes, Chairwoman Gu. The CLO immediately hit the confirmation key on his terminal. A green checkmark bloomed in the center of the screen. Qian closed his eyes in despair. Lashes still trembling. Eyeballs spinning wildly beneath the lids. But the lids stayed shut. Like 2 gates finally slamming down. It's over. No. Gu Xiao's gaze returned to the table. A senior partner asked if the divorce decree was processed. He respectfully handed over a dark red booklet with both hands. The cover was embossed with gold lettering. When opened, a couple's ID photo could be seen pasted inside. but a red stamp was placed right down the middle of the photo, splitting it in two. Gu Shiyu took the divorce decree. She tossed it casually to the edge of the table. The red cover looked glaringly harsh under the cold white light. The glint of the gold lettering flashed in Qi Yan's eyes. Take Mr. Qi where he belongs. Gu Shiyu leaned back in her chair, her tone flat. As soon as she spoke, the boardroom doors swung open again. 4 officers from the Economic Crimes Unit in full uniform strode in. Their leather shoes made sharp, synchronized clicks on the floor. The lead officer walked up to Qi Yan, pulling a folded piece of paper from his pocket and unfolding it. It was an arrest warrant, with a bright red seal. Qi Yan, you are under investigation for embezzlement, forgery of corporate seals, and major financial contract fraud. The amount involved is up to 6 billion. You need to come with us. Qi Yan offered no resistance. His limbs had lost all sensation. It was as if the bones had been ripped from his body. He let the 2 officers grab him under his armpits, hoisting him off the floor. His shoe tips dragged on the carpet, the plush fibers scraping to one side. Ice-cold metal handcuffs latched around his wrists. A sharp click. The clash declared Qi Yan of Etherian tech dead. The officers marched Qi Yan toward the door. His legs dragged on the floor, unable to take a single step. He was entirely carried forward. Just as he was about to cross the boardroom threshold, Qi Yan used the very last ounce of strength in his body. He turned to look at the woman far down the table. She once stayed up till 3 a.m. making him herbal tonic. The woman who once soothed his stomach pain with her warm palm. At his lowest, she brought billions and lived with him in a basement. Gu Shiyu was looking down. Her slender fingers turned the page of the next investment file. Her profile was chiseled under the light, her lashes lowered, casting a faint shadow beneath her eyes. She didn't even shift her gaze. Not a single spare glance was given to him. A murky tear slid from the corner of Qi Yan's eye. It traced his cheekbone, dripping onto his shirt. The fabric absorbed it, leaving a dark, wet circle. The door slammed shut behind him.